Welcome back to the Real Talk Corner podcast, where we dive deep into personal journeys and topics that can inspire and transform us on a mind, body, soul, and spirit level. I'm your host, Ariana Gutierrez, and today we have a deeply moving episode in store for you. Joining me is George Ackerman, the author of A Son's Journey from Parkinson's Disease Caregiver to Advocate. In this episode, we'll delve into the heartfelt journey as both a caregiver and an advocate, exploring the challenges, lessons, and emotions that come with supporting a loved one through illness. This is a story of love, resilience, and the power of advocacy you won't want to miss. The Real Talk Corner. We back. We in the building. As I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, fighting my way through the darkness where the wicked don't rest. Conscious aware, truth I dare, shield tied to my chest. My tenacity can put these motherfuckers to the test. High priestess of fire, alchemistic desire. I say manifest and shit, even when I am tired. You can call me amazing, by the bricks I've been laying, but you'll never call me lazy, cause my vibes are devastating. In the league of my own, spitting real talk energy. I know a little something about a thing called synergy. This is so ready to throw a sending masses away from me. Listen up, cause we about to set your mind, body, and soul free. So, welcome to another episode of the Real Talk Corner. I have a special guest with me today, Sharon's son, George, and I'm going to let him go into what he does, and then we'll get into the theme.
Thanks. It's an honor to have the time to take the time really to have me here to speak to you and your audience. It means the world. This is not a fun topic, unfortunately, but it is one that, even though I've had rough times, I lost my best friend, my mother, there's been a lot of light from the darkness, and that's what I'm here to say, that no one should ever give up. But I lost my mother due to Parkinson's disease, unfortunately, in 1/1/2020. And again, she was my best friend. We weren't prepared. We were told by many, many medical professionals, experts, that you don't die of Parkinson's, you die with it. So even sitting here with you almost 5 years later, I'm still in shock because I don't understand why the disease progressed so quickly with her. But it's the number one fastest growing neurodegenerative disease in the world. So not about 1 million people in the U.S. and 10 million throughout the world. And just something that you see that you wish you didn't, and that you wish that your loved one didn't have it or have to go through it, or that anyone in the nation had to. And that's what I do today. I went from caregiver to today advocate. And I spend, sadly, even though the number one rule is take care of your own health, I've kind of broke that. And I advocate 24/7 in my mother's memory, but for all those still battling with Parkinson today, their families, and all the communities that it affects. So that's a really important message. We're far from a cure, but I personally feel we could have a cure at our doorsteps tomorrow if we had the whole world involved. And that's why, again, I'm really excited to talk to you and be on the show, because this is not just, I'm not selling anything. I don't want any, we don't accept money. We just want people to know that they're never alone.
Right, right. And the thing about I think we'll go into a little bit of what Parkinson's is, because you have firsthand experience of how someone does kind of lose control of whether it's the mind, the body, things that they can do. That takes a toll on caregivers a lot, because then you have to not only mentally, right, taking care of your family member, but physically there's the physical aspect as well, and the emotional aspect as you watch them, right? So for someone who doesn't know what Parkinson's is, can you go into just a little bit of what that looks like when you're taking care of someone with Parkinson's?
Yeah, I wrote a book about it. It actually just came out a month or two ago. It's called The Son's Journey. And the reason I didn't want to write a book, and we don't make anything from it. We donate 100% to the Michael J. Fox Foundation, to the American Parkinson Disease Association, and other incredible organizations like Drive Toward a Cure and power over Parkinson's. I don't really want to be a foundation on purpose. I wanted this to be more about just me speaking in memory of my mother, but for all the voices out there who I feel can't and maybe don't want to be public. That's why I have many heroes out there, like Michael J. Fox, who got a Parkinson diagnosis at a young age. It's called young onset, almost in his 30s, and he decided to fight back and raise billions of dollars to find a cure. He's not doing very well today, but it's that's what the disease is. It's a neurological disorder. The hard thing is why we have no cure is that every person's journey is so different. So what happened to my mother, I can only talk about from our experience, but doesn't mean it'll happen to the next person. My mother had a little stiffness in her left arm. She had it for 15 years, but 7 years, I never even knew what. I heard the word Parkinson. I didn't know what it was. I didn't know it was a disease. Because, like I said, a lot of the doctors said, don't worry about it in a way. And she didn't want to tell us, I think, a lot because she didn't want to burden the family. So I took over her life on the fourth year before she passed. She went with my father. They were divorced, but he was a medical doctor from New York. They went to a special trial for people with Parkinson's because they tried everything, nothing really worked. And that night she came home. Unfortunately, I don't know if it was due to the change in the medicine drastically, but I got a call to rush over at 4 a.m. at her home, and she had been moving her furniture out of the house. And when I approached her, she was agitated and scared, and I didn't know why. And I said, "What's wrong?" And she thought there were Nazis inside her home that were going to harm her. And that's the first time I ever really heard of delusions and hallucinations. And some, not all, individuals with Parkinson's get that due to Parkinson's medicines and just the disease. That's the night I rushed to the hospital. They said we saved her life, but she kind of went on a downhill spiral for the last 4 years. And like I said, some of the things I saw, I just wish she never had to go through. It's things like dramatic weight loss, loss of the ability to speak. She went from walking several miles a week to 2 years of the cane, then a walker, then wheelchair, and then bedbound for 7 days. Parkinson's has 5 stages. The first are kind of where you have stiffness and rigidity. So she had like her left arm was stiff, but she could still live independently and on her own and drive and have a life. But then as it progresses to stage 2 and 3, now it starts where you need more like help. You can't really, you're at risk at falling, which is very bad. So we had to hire staff. We were spending about $12,000 a month at one point just to have women, people like not. I don't call them caregivers, no offense, because they didn't really know what Parkinson. I wanted a human body to make sure she didn't fall because I knew if she fell, that would add to them. It would be too late for everything. So I had that, but also it's rigidity. So it's almost like your body feels stiff. So if someone wants to feel in their mind that they're going to touch the screen, the body might not allow them to do that. Others have external tremors like Michael J. Fox, where you see uncontrollable movement. And it's my mother had more internal until the end when she had external. And that was frustrating because she felt like no one believed her, which was another thing to tackle. Also, you could have dystonia, which is your toes curl, which is very tough, tough to walk, tough to function. Many, unfortunately, after stage 3, 4, and then finally 5, you need someone to take care of you, and you can't work anymore. I mean, I have, we spoke. If we get to it, I've interviewed about almost 1,000 people now around the world. I was shocked to find out 2 years ago that 10 million people in the world have Parkinson's. I didn't even think of that. I thought it was just the U.S. and what do I know? Well, I realized at that point it wasn't just about me and my mother, and I wanted to share other people's journeys. So I had the honor to speak to Muhammad Ali's daughter, met Michael J. Fox. I've had Ozzy Osbourne's son Jack leave a message. Kenny G, the famous saxophone player, played a song for my mother in her memory, and now we're possibly working on a documentary. I'm not sure yet. But it's like I said, the sadness is still always going to be there. I feel like part of me passed with my mother, but she still lives on. Even just today, if we reach just one person, we've changed their world because now they know they're not alone.
Definitely. It is I think it is on anyone's side, even like myself, when you're not in it, you don't know anyone who has it. You're not you don't know any of this stuff. You don't know how many people actually are living with it right now, and you don't know like the circumstance. And I like that I like that you wrote the book, and you guys definitely go check it out, because you're gonna in there you talk about how it feels, right? How it feels to be not just the caretaker, but this is your mother, right? This is your mom, your best friend. You talk about her being your best friend. That can't be easy to sit and watch her decline, especially over a period of time. And you said it happened more quickly than usual, to most people. So hers got more advanced and aggressive.
Yeah, we don't know why. There are people who live to 90. With they say, and I do believe it for some, that you don't die of Parkinson's, you die with it. So you might have complications of other things. She had major that caused huge stomach gut like issues, like major problems. She had to have staff at night. She didn't sleep with horrible things that we won't get into, even though you have the parental advisory. I don't want everyone crying today. That's not my purpose. But what's really frightening, besides going through it myself with my mother, is seeing so many people now, even celebrities. Last night they had the Democrat, event, the convention, and they had Jesse Jackson out, and he has major developments with Parkinson's, and you could see. I don't know if you saw. I just saw a clip, but he, is in a wheelchair now, and he's not the same. He used to be this, he's still a hero to many. He used to be a guy who could stand up there and talk, and like people would
Right.
love to listen, but it debilitates an individual. Also, Michael J. Fox just recently, I don't know if you saw, went worldwide, was playing guitar on stage with Coldplay, the famous rock band, but he was in a wheelchair. I don't want to say wheelchair bound because I can't talk for him, but at least from a viewer and someone who's aware of this, that's what my mother kind of went through. I just interviewed someone, Sebastian. He's an incredible Grammy Award winning 15th time, I think, Latin producer. And he came on my show, which I don't know why I have a show, but we started one just about Parkinson's for awareness. But
Mhm.
he was telling me how, it just changed his life. He has like this beautiful room of guitars, but he can't play anymore. So it's just kind of heartbreaking, but inspiring because he's now working with Michael J. Fox Foundation. He's raising so much money that I try and I can never do because, I'm not a big person into celebrities and things, but we do need everybody from the regular man and women, the guy and the gal, to the big time famous individuals, all as a family, so we can come closer to a cure.
Right. So, what inspired you to really get into, I'm going to write this book about my journey? Because I understand the personal journey is very hard to write about it, right? It's very hard to put that into words and then kind of have to relive a lot of the things that you went through. So, what really inspired you to cross that threshold?
Yeah, the two things. The first is I actually kept a journal of my with my mother, how literally from a caregiver point, how I felt for the last year, which was the worst. But what
Hmm.
I hard too, number two, to even speak about sometime. I'm still, mourning and grieving, and it's just I still don't know what's happened. And there's always a seat missing at our table for every holiday, and it's because of Parkinson. I do feel she was robbed 15 years of with it alive, and 15 after, because she was only 69. And in my odd world, 2024 people are living past their 85. So I do feel like we were robbed, and she was even more. And the actual picture I've chose is the wedding, my wedding. It was the mother and son dance. And I
Hmm.
picked this because if you see, I don't know if you viewers can see, but she's smiling and happy. And that was like literally one of my most favorite moments ever in my life, where we were just dancing. It was only 3 minutes, but the world stopped. She was happy. We were both, laughing, and just Parkinson didn't exist at that moment, and it didn't matter. And that just shows that Parkinson doesn't define a person, and they take them, unfortunately, or take away their livelihood, but it can never take away the memories that we have together. And it's not the reason. The last one is that I wrote it. I was shocked because I didn't talk a lot about it, but my background is I'm a police officer. I'm reserve. I'm an attorney, Florida and D.C. I also have a PhD. I'm a professor. I teach criminal justice. But when I researched before all this world of advocacy, I'm dizzy talking about, but I was an advocate for family members of homicide victims and their families. So I worked with a group, African American mothers who lost their loved one due to murder in West Palm Beach, Florida. But I've always noticed, I look for things that we need more of awareness. So I always was shocked to see that obviously you have a victim of crime, which is horrifying, but the family members become secondary crime victims, and they're often forgotten, like literally by the criminal justice. It's not on purpose. It's just how it is. You might have
Right.
a county or city of like 3 million people. There's only like one victim's advocate, and that's not right. But you'll have 4,000 criminal defense lawyers. I don't get it, but that's what I dedicated the first part and most of my life to, is awareness for them. And I almost felt like the same went for Parkinson, because I felt like we're the people battling it and the families feel they're like victims, because it's not much that can be done. Yes, they have some medicine to kind of control the tremor, but there's no cure. There's no stopping the disease. And I felt like a secondary, I always say I should coin the term, if they don't have it, secondary Parkinson's disease, because I was right there with my mother holding her hand through every literal second till she couldn't even breathe anymore due to the disease. So, it was tough. But so I did research. I'm like, I'm not going to write a book. I do write books on criminal justice, but the whole world is cuckoo now with all so I want to get away a little from that. And the nice thing with Parkinson's, not the disease, but awareness is it's bipartisan. The first thing that passed just a few weeks ago, history was made. I don't know if you heard, but the National Plan to End Parkinson's Disease is the first federal law in history, U.S. history, that was passed just a few weeks ago. It went through the Senate and the House unanimously, and there wasn't like an argument with the party. Everybody's for cure. President Biden just signed it like literally a month ago before all the other things happened in the world. So, even him saying he has people claiming he has Parkinson's, I don't care about the topic, and I don't like it. Like, I don't like it used for any person if they don't have it. But now having it as a national thing, like people now wondering what's Parkinson's, is actually important, because if you see what it can do, I'm not saying he has it. It doesn't. I have no clue. I'm not a medical doctor, but it's good to bring that attention. So lastly, I looked online on Amazon, like a quick look. I looked there and I couldn't find it. And I always tell everyone listening, please yell at me on the email if you want, if I'm wrong. But I've never seen one book in the world, like literally the world, that is from a son who lost his mother due to Parkinson's. And I said that it's time. And also, that's what I do a lot of it. I actually wrote 2 more books. We're not publishing yet. But I look for unique areas that aren't out there that need to be. And we don't make anything on purpose from the books. We donate it all, and I spend a lot on it because it's a lot of editing and things. I don't want to just put something out there. It's my mother's life. But I am excited to announce, since we're on, that so if you go to togetherforsharon.com and you go to interviews, I'm still doing them, but I've almost reached 1,000. But I've interviewed people from Africa to India to Spain to Italy to Nova Scotia, even Iceland, and
Mhm.
just sharing other people's journeys. But we're decided we're going to release 4 books of the interviews, one each summer, and it'll have about 200 interviews in each book. I'm hoping to offer the book online completely free. And I know that sounds crazy, but that's why I do this. I don't do it for that. And I'll probably be spending a lot putting it out there, which someday I might have to change. But the reason I am here and why I do what I do, I don't know if you can see it, but every morning a new interview pops up. And this is actually Frank. And he has a website called Embracing Parkinson. But seeing Frank, it's him and his dog, but just seeing other people's journeys. The other week, I was shocked to find out that this group of 4 men literally rode around the world and raised like $40 million for awareness for. Now, I'm not able to fundraise like that or row a boat. I get seasick. But just knowing that these people are all out there and that they're going through the fight and that no one's alone is what really inspires me today.
Right. Well, definitely kind of knowing where your strengths are, right? And then working in that. I will have your links in the description, no matter where you guys are listening or watching, so that they can go, because I went over to your website and kind of checked out the Michael J. Fox one with you. And I think this is awesome because I feel like whenever you're going through something like this, it is traumatic, and there's a lot, that grief that you have to go through. But instead of taking it where you kind of let it destroy your life, you have taken it and said, no, we're going to do something positive. We're going to advocate. We're going to talk about it. We're going to, start a whole show on it. Not necessarily in that order, but It was like, I'm going to do something positive instead of allow it to destroy you, which it could have done, because grief is one of those processes, either or, you become an advocate, or sometimes you end up falling into the grief, which grief is a process. There's no time limit, on, because you have to reconstruct your life without that person. And that's not an easy place to be. Every day you wake up and you have to reconstruct what that looks like. So,
Yeah, the worst thing is even just down to the minimal phone call. My mother
right,
was not. I always look at the iPhone on my favorites, and my mother was first after my wife. And but that, not to get off topic, but there's a chapter on my wife and a chapter on my children. She actually wrote it, and if it wasn't for my wife and kids, and my mother was they were best friends too with my wife, which was amazing. But I will never forget, I wrote about in the book the first time I introduced them when we were just dating. They kind of forgot I was there and had a ball without me. Like in the we were eating, but they had so much in common and to talk, and that was amazing. But I wouldn't have made it through caregiving, or my mother's passing, or even today as an advocate, if it wasn't for their support. So the two keys to everyone listening is you have to have your support. If you had a fight with someone, your mother or loved one, forget the damn fight. Like, just forget it, because this is the time they need. I wouldn't be sitting here with you. I feel the man I am today, or the accomplishments I had, if it wasn't from my mother's sacrifices. She was a school teacher, had a master's, and gave it all up to raise me and my brother. So I never forgot that, and I knew that no one would be able to take care of her like I could. So definitely happy sitting here knowing I tried everything. There's no regret. The only joke I have is that the old days we didn't have shows and podcasts, but I really dream and regret that I didn't have a show with my mother before Parkinson's, like just to kind of joke and talk about my life. That would have been a cute show, and maybe no one would watch it, but I would have had millions of hours of tape, and could have
right.
used it right now and replayed the happier. Not just I have documented the last year of her life, but I didn't share it, and I don't really want to, because it's so horrifying to watch, but it is reality. But then again, it's like a little thing. I'm arguing with the devil and the God, the good guy and the angel. But I want people to see it so they know for awareness. But then I don't want her to remember for that. So we're
Right.
talking about that now. Is if we do something more. But it's not easy. But like I said, talking about it and making sure that even one person a day learns about her definitely is all the reason I do this.
Definitely. I like what that you bring that up about support, because I think also, especially when it comes to children of parents who are taking it on, and they kind of take it on solely and not realizing that it is an effort of multiple people. It is definitely tiring. It is definitely weighs heavy, like I said earlier, emotionally, not just physically. That emotional impact is huge. And the mental aspect of that also is huge. What are some of the things that you were able or found to try to not lose your mind through the process of being right there with her through every step?
Yeah, I mean, I did have times where I went through anger, depression, sadness, sometimes joy when she had a moment of happiness, but then really mad at the world, mad at the doctors, although it's not their fault, and mad at the disease. My mother was like the kindest, sweetest person, and even she one day, because of the disease, took like a little light and threw it against the wall, which she'd never done her whole life. So, and then when she lost hope, she went into like a year-long hospice, which was rare. It was nice they offered it in Florida, because I didn't have any medical experience and we needed help. So when you do that, it was, if you qualify, you have like a real nurse, you have a medicine, everything. But the problem is they don't believe in hospice and physical therapy, which is a problem, because there's only one thing that fights Parkinson today, and that's exercise. Exercise and diet is really all we have, but you have to do 35, 40 minutes a day, even for caregivers or for anyone. But when they took away physical therapy, that's kind of like your hope, in your brain, where if you keep strong, you can get better. She like really, we lost her and mentally, I think, at that point, and it was hard because she couldn't physically do some of the stuff. So that
Mm,
was a big reason, and she just kind of got skinnier and skinnier and more fragile. And her favorite time is sitting in the backyard blowing bubbles with her grandchildren. And even today, I walk by now, the backyard. She's no longer doing that. So it's still tough. I'm 6'2", 200-pound police guy, but sometimes I'll leave these shows. I'm fine now, but my wife will hug me. I'll fall apart because it's, it does stink. I wish I didn't have this stuff. I wish we didn't have to do this talk about that. But I'll still do it till we find a cure, and even when we find a cure, I'll still try to remember her. But I probably wouldn't do 24/7 like I'm doing now because it's not easy. Some days I leave this, I feel like a truck drove over me because I've done like 10 interviews or my own show or social media. We're on 7 social medias. We're not an organization on purpose. It's just me. There's nobody else, and I do try to respond to people 24/7, and I get some beautiful messages, thanking me, and that's again nice. But till I see other people who I met today who I consider family, there's 3 people, even my friend Mark now, Melissa and Esther, who all have Parkinson's, and they when I see them struggling or they're big on social media. When they put a post up that they're not doing well, kind of breaks my heart. And I think back to what my mother and I went through, and that's kind of what keeps driving me to not give up today. And I don't have Parkinson's. I'm no longer a caregiver of someone living with it. But I think there's like 50 million people out there who lost a loved one due to Parkinson's, who did what you said, and I don't blame them. They kind of just move on, and they love their loved one, and they don't advocate.
Right.
I was brought up a little. My mother's funny. She would say, "George, don't waste your time with all this. Spend it with your family," which is probably true. But she knows she didn't raise me to kind of just say, "All right, forget it, move on, let's go."
Mm,
But there is a fine line that I'm kind of breaking where you have to take care of yourself. And it's not that I don't know how to say no. It's that when I was caring for my mother, I knew I didn't, it was almost like a watch counting down. I didn't know how much time I had. So I said, I'm not going to worry about my health until who knows. So I did go on for a long time, 4 years. And then today, as an advocate, same thing. It's just, again, there's so many people I care about, love now, fighting this disease that I just don't think it's time yet to take a break.
right. I think that definitely is probably very important because you can't care for others if you don't care for yourself,
But I've
right?
been told I
You
didn't. I always proud to say I'm a hypocrite just with that.
right, you get lost in it. You get lost in it. And I have a short moment of trying to help my mom, not with Parkinson's, but just other failing health that she had. And it was hard. And I could not do it. So, she's in a facility and getting care in a facility. And I think there's a lot of because there's a lot that's required for you to step up and be that caretaker. And again, you lose yourself with trying to make sure that they're good and all the appointments and doctors and nurses and everything that's going on. And you can get lost in all of that. Did you ever find like a calendar or something to put up and say, hey, I need to also remind myself about me? Like I'm just as important as what's going on.
No, I mean I did always. My big thing was basketball and running. Unfortunately, I've had a lot of my own medical issues. This summer, I've been in 3 surgeries for my back. So,
Mm,
but back then I didn't have that. I mean, I remember one Sunday morning I was with a group of 50 guys. We played competitive. But I had all, and I broken every body part, so I had to it takes like a half hour just to get dressed to play basketball now. And I had it all on the gear, ready to go. My mother called frantically, and if you read in the book, I write about it. But I dropped it all to go see her because, like I said, I never knew, would that be it? Doctors didn't know. I pulled one doctor in a room once nicely and just said, "Doctor, is my mother gonna like live?" And he couldn't answer. He didn't think she wouldn't live. Like they kept saying, "You're not gonna die of it." Well, she did. So, no, I mean, there's never really did I ever regret what I did or even today. Wish I could do more. I wish I could, find a cure and end this and then we can all kind of move on, but it's not. I don't see it yet. So, till then, I have to keep, trying my best.
right, right.
And it is weird because we're in 2024, and I get this. Sometimes I do get weird things because I don't want to sell anything. I don't want anything. It's not like literally the only thing I want is a cure, and I can't bring my mother back, which I wish I could. So there are people like 1% who don't understand why I'm doing it. Like they say, got to be some kind of ulterior motive. But then when I'm brag that I don't want anything, it's like that's the end. There's no work. So it's like it's just weird that in 2024 you can't really. I think help everyone and have everyone on board. I am writing other books. 2 of them are done. One is going to change the world. I hope. So now we're coming out with the interview book, which is like almost out. Then I'm finished with editing. It's about policing in Parkinson's. There's nothing like it in the country. And since I'm an officer, I saw a very scary need to have better training and just add the word Parkinson's. Right now, currently in most academies throughout the United States, they list the word dementia and Alzheimer's, but Parkinson doesn't exist. Well, Parkinson's, no, I wish we had a cure for everything, but Parkinson's is a disease that's the moving. So guess what? 10 and 11 p.m. at night, or 4 in the morning, or 4 p.m. afternoon, if your officer pulls someone over who's uncontrollably shaking, might think they're DUI or drunk, or
Right.
drink, drugs. And guess what? If they don't have the right training, it's not going to end well. And this is a pro-police book, so it's not to bash police like a lot of stuff, unfortunately, today. It's
Yeah.
just to bring awareness and to show that we could really save literal lives. And also, it's a research book, so I've interviewed 30 police officers across the country in different positions. I've interviewed one. I did research, got one academy in every single state in the book, and most. I don't want to reveal too much, but it's one of the shocking things. I also interviewed people with Parkinson. That was hard to find because they're so. One thing I found is they're scared of the police, which is really frightening because they're worried that the officer doesn't understand, they're not trained, and they're shaking, and it can get into a heated, horrible argument. And
Right.
so it's just, and the reason I thought of that is there's nothing like it. It's like, how could there not be one book? And I hate talking about it because I don't, someone will come out tomorrow, make me, that's the end of all my research, but I don't think they will. So
No.
my dream is to take that book someday when it is out and work with an organization like Michael J. Fox and change policy, and maybe
Mm.
even go to Congress or the Senate and have them add just the word Parkinson's disease to every academy in the nation. So there's a
Right.
lot of cool things coming that I think could change the world, and that's really just what I want. I imagine if we could just stop or save one, even for the officer. It's not just about the person with part, but just even a 2-minute thing with a word might help them also be a little bit kinder to the person going through the disorder.
Right. There's all of that that is so, like I said, unaware. We're not aware of all of these things. And I definitely feel on a grander scale, the police force, there's so many missing pieces, not just, what's out there in the what everyone focuses on, but there's so many of those missing pieces on even on a health basis, because there's so many things
Yeah.
that people have that can actually make them seem like they're off they're off their meds, or they can't articulate, or if they're having a spasm or something that's going on. So I think that's wonderful that you were like, I like that you've looked at what's out there and you're like, wait a minute, why not? Why don't we have this? And you would think with so many people, there would be more literature, there would be more stories, there would be more things out there that you can do, because I think one of the biggest thing is sitting there thinking, I'm alone. I'm alone going through this, right? This is not something that everyone is going through. But as you're talking about this, we're listening. It's like, wow, there's so many people that are going through this. Why aren't we talking about it?
Yeah, I mean, it's just incredible. Like, and I'm still shocked that they don't even, and again, I don't expect police, even myself, to understand every disease, and that's not their job. But if you're already covering, dementia and Alzheimer's, just throwing in the word Parkinson's is not really much to ask for. It's like just add this little word into all the academy training, which is not. But I even had, like, again, I don't want to get. I'll wait till that book's out. I'd love to talk again, but I even got a little pushback from police organizations because they're like, they don't want you to kind of attack them, which I'm not, and they also don't understand why they should be aware of it. So it just depends what city, state. They might have other issues that are more important. But I
Right.
don't see, again, much. It doesn't even cost a penny to add one little word into the book that you already have for training new trainees, plus having an in-service for sworn officers that they have to take anyway. Big thing now is autism. That's now kind of come to the forefront and changed the world. And there is a discussion, and it's the same thing. We might only have 1 million people, which is not a lot of people in the U.S., but it's the fastest growing, and now it's spreading, progressing. You see Jesse Jackson, Muhammad Ali, Janet Reno. I'm not going to say President Biden because we don't know about that, but there's actually a senator, or I believe a House of Representative, Jennifer Wexton. She has. They thought she had Parkinson's. She has PSP, which is a similar form. But I think she might not be able to continue much longer as a congresswoman because of the disease, and she's brought a huge awareness. And she actually is one of the founders of the bill, the national plan to end Parkinson's. And we needed, unfortunately, some of the sponsors of the bill lost their loved ones, several to Parkinson's recently. So when they're affected now, and I think the Democrat minority Chuck Schumer, his father, I believe, has Parkinson's. Willie Geist from NBC's father. I don't know if you saw Ryan Reynolds just came out and talked about how his father had Parkinson's. So oddly enough, it's now like I don't know if it's just people are kind of quiet, which is fine, they're private. But if for some reason nationally, all of a sudden everybody's coming out and talking about Parkinson's, which is good in a way. But it's I would love to interview some of these people. It's hard to reach them. I tried, I'm just the guy in this area, and I've written to 15 major news stations because April's Parkinson's Awareness Month, and I don't get a reply, but I just keep trying and trying, and hope someday, they'll reply. And again, it's hard because I think they don't understand. Again, what is this? What do I want? Like, why am I? But I don't want anything. And then when they find out, they're even more kind of confused. So I just want a cure.
It is troubling, though. We're in 2024 and there's so many things that we're still so unknown. And so, we're still so, I guess, behind. I don't know if we're really behind, or, I mean, that's probably a whole nother topic of pharmaceutical companies and what I feel about them. But I do, there's a lot of these things where it's like, I feel like at this time, 2024, as advanced as we are, we should have a lot of cures for certain things, or at least better assistance with a lot of these diseases that come, especially they've been here for a long time. Parkinson's is not new. It's not something that's new. It's been here for quite some time. So
Yeah.
I like that there's more buzz coming out. I think it's just about, when you have celebrities, of course, start speaking out, of course, you get a lot more attention. You get a lot more talk about it because you have like the famous people behind speaking about it, even though Michael J. Fox has been talking about it for decades. This is not, something new for him. So it's really awesome to see more people kind of come out and talk about it and not just be so hush hush, you know. Um, what what advice would you give caregivers that are dealing with this right now, working with their own family that have Parkinson's
I
when it
think
comes to
that
balancing?
most important thing is you're not alone. But I did a lot of it alone. I have a brother, but he wasn't able to help like he could. My wife was taking care of three children, so she was incredible support. They would come with the family over. My mother, some days she was too sick to see them, and she felt bad because she didn't want people to see her, how it changed her. But there
Yeah.
were times that the only time she was happy was when the kids were over screaming. We even had bought a new home for her, which she never even got to enjoy. Like the last year, had a beautiful little man-made lake. I thought she'd have 10 years to relax there, but she didn't. But we had a whole room just called the kids' room, where the kids had toys and just threw the. It was a mess. Like it was okay, but we'd bring her in with the wheelchair, and she would just watch them, and she was happy. So definitely spend time with family. I think forget any past problems because it doesn't matter anymore. They need you. I don't see anything wrong with having homes, like your situation. My mother made me swear that I wouldn't. There were days though that I talked to myself. I'm like, I can't take it because I'm not trained. But so we swore we wouldn't, and that was not an easy burden even. But I'm glad we kept it. So, but I have no problem, with other individuals' choices up to the individual family. And then the other thing is, like you said, take care of your own health. But everyone has to do. I was the kind of person who planned, and I would make checklists and do every single one and try another one, but every single damn time. Sorry for the French, but it just did fail. So I don't feel like we failed, but we definitely didn't win because she's not here. Part of me is, happier. Like a friend's always telling me, one chapter is actually all of her friends. They were beautiful. They wrote like a few sentences about my mother and their growing up together and their friendship, and then what they felt when they found out about Parkinson, that she had it. But friends are important. Two of her best friends, honestly, they vanished when she got really sick, which was really heartbreaking more than anything because I think they couldn't tolerate seeing her like that, but that's not what you do when you're friends for so long, which is still kind of baffling. But that's who your real friends are, I guess. So those are some of the things, but
Yeah.
definitely the last thing is find resources. If you can't get my book, go to our website. It's completely free. I list resources that you can get involved locally or virtually now. There's so many things. We have a support group actually meets once a month for free on Zoom for people, all people who lost a loved one due to any disease, so they know they're not alone. There's
Mm.
also local events like Michael J. Fox in New York and the Parkinson's Foundation, the American Parkinson. There's a lot of, and there's a section in the site. It's a lot now. I don't know how it's getting so big, but if you click on resources, I think, or partnerships, and it'll list literal big foundations around the world. So you might be living in Portland and not know that there's the Brian Grant Foundation, who I interviewed, a member of their organization. Brian Grant used to be a famous NBA basketball player for the Portland Trailblazers and the Miami Heat, and he actually has a foundation in Portland. Well, if you live in Portland, you can actually go to, it's incredible, you can go to events and see other people going through this, or family. So just don't stay alone, because you're never alone.
Right. There's definitely support out there. It is definitely a hard decision. Like I commend you for being in that place because it is very hard to sit and do that. I know personally, I wouldn't want my family to see me kind of decline in that way. I've told my daughter my wishes are like, no, I want them to remember me in the high spirit of who I am. I do not want them. And everyone has their thing. If my mom probably, if she was just like, no, I don't want to be here, me and my brother would probably have to think about it and figure it out. But I think some people too, just, it's hard to see someone die, even though we know we're all going to die. We know that day will come, but we never really know when. So I do think it's very hard for some people to watch, to see, and a lot of people shut down. So I feel like what you've done and pushed past a lot of that to say, no, I'm going to be here regardless, of course, shows just your own character and your resilience in the situation. But I also love it because now, whoever's going to see this and listen to this story can, like, okay, look at it and not feel bad. And whatever your decision is, just be okay with that decision, right? Be okay with that decision and live in it, because time is of essence when you're in a situation you really don't know. Not that any of us have a death date that we know of, but literally, if you know the prognosis, if you know this is what it is, then you can act accordingly and say, okay, this, we know this is coming sooner than what we would like or what we would hope, right?
Yeah, no, I think that's very on point. And also, I'm not someone who is unreachable. So if you ever do out there listening need someone, feel free to email me. We have every social media. You go to togetherfishround.com on the main page and scroll down, you'll see it looks like a Christmas tree. If you click that, it'll go to every single social media, and then I can add you back. Because again, it's just me and not like a big company or anything who might be too big. I found, unfortunately, with some of these major organizations, it's very hard to get a response, which is also sad. And I won't name which ones, but even for a different illness somebody in my family has, I wrote to them and said, because now what I do is I actually follow journeys of other diseases. We've shared cancer, ALS, dementia, Alzheimer's, because I want to cure for them all. Unfortunately, Parkinson's hit us the most, but I think it's important to spread awareness for everything. So there's one that I really was excited to talk to and have them interview, and they just don't respond, which I think is a tragic thing, because they're going to just hurt themselves if you don't work with everyone out there and try and help share awareness, and you're going to be further from a cure. So kind of gave up, unfortunately, on that world, but it's a shame, because I just wanted to share their journey. I didn't want anything in return. So for the ones that do, it's just incredible. And like I said, I wanted to stop the interviews, but every time I hear a new person that motivates me, I mean, there's people doing push-ups for Parkinson's, there's animals for Parkinson's, there's music therapy. There's just so many fascinating people out there, that just incredible stories. I interviewed someone who kind of had Parkinson's, and their mother had Parkinson's, and their grandmother. So they don't think it's genetic, but it was interesting to hear about that. I feel it's environmental. My mother had a nice home, but it had, mold after years and termites, and we think that the bug spray might have caused it, or a lot of Roundup things. There's a lot of lawsuits in the country now. China banned paraquat, it's a poison used in a lot of these chemical sprays. The U.S. hasn't banned it, so it's just shocking to me that we even have pesticides that spray on our foods in the supermarket. And we go and we trust the FDA and all these, you know,
Right.
but it's not always safe. So, and Camp Lejeune, it's a famous case going on, lawsuit where people in the military, families and veterans now have Parkinson's because of the water that was chemicals used. So a lot we can do. I recommend always reach out to politicians. You have to do it 40 times before they respond, but I did. You can't give up. But the only way we're going to change the world and find a cure is if we're all in this together. And for the 1% who aren't, we can still do a lot with 99.9% of the people together.
Definitely, definitely. It is sad when the US is kind of like the last to ban anything. We have so much harmful stuff. And you look at other countries and like half of it is banned, and we're still over here and just trucking along, which I think is as backwards. But this is the USA that we live in, right?
Yeah.
But it is good. It does. I love that you are taking action, and I talk about this on other shows of that you have to take the action. You have to contact your Congress, your Senates, and all of those people, and get them involved. And if one says no, you got to keep going. You have to be persistent, especially if you want to get any attention on what you're doing. All the interviews that you're doing are actually I think are wonderful, because every story that you're talking about, I feel like if someone goes to the website, if they go check it out, they're gonna, I think there's a lot missing when you're in the doctor's office, right? There, the doctor's office, they're so on your health, medicines, things like that. But all of the social aspect to it, or just other things that maybe you can do that other people have tried, that's not really talked about in the doctor's office. So I think people like yourself who have this website where they have these other interviews and they have all these conversations that people can go, oh, wow, I didn't know that was a thing. I didn't know I can do that. I didn't know we can try this. I didn't know that, music therapy is a thing, because no doctor is going to say, yeah, try music therapy, right? That's not something that they're recommending and writing you a prescription for. So I think those things, if you look at it, are tremendous in the advocacy that you're doing. So when
Yeah, and
people
also the best thing is free. So I had one gentleman writing me, I spent 10 hours on your website. I'm like, don't spend that long. It's, but that's the thing. It's free. There's no catch. You can click on over 1,000 interviews free. You can email it's actually a contact for everybody on there. If you don't want to talk to me, you don't have to. You can talk to the person. Also, I did them all for free, all the interviews. So, it was a lot of hard work, time, but I do love it. And, one, you just brought up something important. One of the saddest things, and again, I don't blame them, but they don't have an answer, is in the medical field. I've been getting a lot of interviews, people telling me with Parkinson's that they'll kind of give them a brochure and some information and see in 7 months. So that's not really what we need. We need, obviously, again, it's not their fault, but we need more. That's what Together for Sharon is, really, just to support people. I just started it when my mother passed because I didn't know how to deal with it, and I felt alone. So I thought maybe 3 or 4 people might see her story and that'll be fine. We've had almost 50,000 people visit the website in 4 years, and I don't know if it's because of our work or that the disease is growing, unfortunately, and progressing even more. So there's a lot of misconceptions. I've been working a lot lately on all my shows on women and Parkinson's, from women are pregnant Parkinson's to menstrual cycle, and probably like some interesting topics that I wouldn't, and also pregnancy in part, because those are it's not they thought it was like an elderly man disease decades ago. It's not. It's more young people now at 30s, 20s. It's women. So many issues, and kids. I was on a show. We talked just about like how does the grandkids or children. We're working on a children's book too, which won't be easy because I want it to come from my mother's voice, which is not. That's been tough for me. But anyway, but this issues like those, or even I had a doctor on talking about medical marijuana. That's like a taboo topic, but it's important. Also, death with dignity. There's no topic I wouldn't cover, and I do it because, again, everyone's thinking about it. They just don't want to talk about it.
definitely.
That's one thing I love about being not a boss, but it's my, invention, founded it, not foundation, but because no one could tell me no or what to do with it. And I think the more information we put out, the more individuals we get involved, the better, and the closer we'll be to a cure.
Definitely part of the quality of life also. Cure would be awesome, but I do feel that everything else that you guys have that you're offering, that you're showing, all the interviews, definitely can help with their quality of life in the interim of what they're going through. So I think that is huge. Just that. Yeah. I was in the healthcare industry for like 10 years. Unfortunately, it is set up to just take care of your diseases. It's not set up for what your quality of life, what your mental health looks like. They're kind of just like, yeah, go see the specialist for some of those things. And having something, other than just that brochure and a prescription or I'll see you back is definitely, I think, where people are lost. They don't know what to do. They're struggling with where to go and what does that look like. So I feel like you are providing so many gems for people that I even myself had the thinking it's for old people. Like just listening to what you're saying, I've learned so much in this podcast. Like, wow, I would have never even, like I said, we know Michael J. Fox has had it since he was younger, but you just kind of go on. It's not something in your life. You don't hear about it. And then you're like, wow, I didn't even know half of this existed or that so many people were dealing with this on a day-to-day basis,
The
so
majority of people lately I've been interviewing on the show is definitely younger onset, which is in a way sadder and scary because they're, and
yeah,
one young lady had in her 30s and she's telling she has his children and they don't know if they should save money for the future or just spend it all now because they don't know how much time she has. It's horrible. It's
yeah,
almost like, but it's not a death sentence. It's just you don't know. It's I don't even know what's worse, knowing when, like let's say you could be told the date you have till,
right.
or not knowing because we didn't know. We lost my mother, and she was on, I think, 69, too young. But then, just it's so different for everyone. It's very hard.
Yeah. I definitely feel like we, all of the messages that come through just far as guidance is everything we do need to clean up everything with our foods, those chemicals that are in everything, just looking at our lives and how this convenience that we have as a society, we are paying for it, unfortunately, with lives. And I definitely believe that wholeheartedly. So the more we talk about these things, maybe the more education we can start. I do feel consumers have power if they stop buying the crap, if we stop. And I know that they make it hard for us, but I do feel like as consumers, we definitely can make a change in our voice with our dollar. But we have to have the knowledge, right? We have to have these conversations and kind of spark some like, oh, wait, I didn't know this or I didn't know that. Or, I'm a big label person now. So I'm constantly looking at labels now. And it surprises me of just how much of stuff we eat that has like a million different chemicals, and then you find where it's from, and if you even knew where some of the stuff is made or created, you're like, what are we eating?
Mm.
What are we really putting into our body? So I love these conversations. But again, thank you so much for coming on. And like I said, I'll have all your links in the description so they can go over and check you out. Check out those interviews, you guys, especially if you are having someone. And even if you don't, I feel like just having the knowledge of it in the back of your mind, should you come across someone who has it, I think it's good to have it or at least know something or be familiar with the topic.
I appreciate it and your time and the audience. And I have a little message. I always say, we love you, we support you, we care a lot about you, and you're never alone. I will advocate, along with the amazing host here, for you. And together, our voices are so much stronger. And I always say I'm just getting started because, like I told you earlier, I mean, I could just fold up shop and go home and that's it. But every time I see another person out there, changing the world or battling Parkinson's, it makes me want to jump in and right by their side and keep going. So, again, I really appreciate your time and the opportunity today. And I'm sending our love to everybody listening. Thank you again.
Awesome. Thank you. All right, you guys, until next time, bye.